Neo-colonialism within the Caribbean is a necessity. If you keep on closing your markets and avoiding importing products from other Caribbean nations, because you speak about islands, I talk about nations, we will not develop the Caribbean region. It must be a safe place. And it's not a safe place for business. There is an inequality. Talking about PPP.
Sir, we don't have
yes,
much time.
I understand.
So
yes.
30 seconds and then you pose the question?
Sure. I'll try to do it in 30 seconds.
Yes.
My English is not so good, so that's why it takes longer.
Why, but we have like literally
but
20
in 30
people
seconds, you talk about PPP, the word trust is mentioned. I direct a institution that is instituted by law, the Suriname Business Forum, which deals with PPP. Every time I am directing the dialogue, because it's dialogue, I tell the public sector, please think what it means to open a business and to run a business. And if you are trying to imagine what it means to run a business, finally, you will understand what to do for the business. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello. Secretary Ramlin, would you like to?
Not because he's...
Table 34.
No,
Hello.
Secretary Ramlin will actually react to the gentleman's comment, please.
I'm not reacting because he's from my country, but I just want to respond on a couple of issues. I think one of the key things in terms of creating an equal level playing field in the Caribbean is urgently implement some of the measures which are provided for in the Treaty of Chaguaramas. There is too much diversity in legal provisions, and this is not only in the case of Suriname or Haiti, but also Central America. One of the complaints I got in Central America is simply there are too many real estate laws, ownership of real estate. This country has a different one, that country has a different one. So we need to work, I believe, certainly on implementation of the provisions already existing. It's part of the CSME, but certainly the Treaty of Chaguaramas provides for harmonization in that sense and making life easier for doing business in the Caribbean. So that's one. The other thing is the general notion of governments to be staying out of business is one notion that needs to be put in almost in policy. Leave business to the private sector. And I'll give you an example here. We speak about logistics, sea routes, air routes, and so on. Without those, whatever production is going to be accomplished, there's not going to be any economic benefit from it because you can't transport it. So one of the things we have seen in the Caribbean is governments are very much involved in the airline industry. But one company outside of this region has created more routes over the past 3 years into the region, opening up the region for the rest of the Americas, and that's Copa Airlines. They have more routes than any other airline in terms of the last couple of 3 years in the region. That should be a responsibility for governments to take action on and to basically liberalize the airline industry in the region. The other thing which I'd like to mention is on Suriname and Guyana being not taken into account. There are new opportunities, markets very close by the region. Central America with 45 million people. We have Arco Norte, which is a new thing in the northern part of South America, where Boa Vista, Macapa, Georgetown, Guyana, Cayenne will be connected through a route. It is a great opportunity to develop agriculture. We have spoken about agriculture. It's a $4 billion bill for the region. If only 10% of that will be covered by one of these countries, it will be one of the largest export sectors for those countries. It's a secured market. It's relevant in terms of the politics, in terms of food security. But Suriname and Guyana can provide great opportunities as they have fertile soil. So we have a lot of new opportunities. The southern part of the United States, from Louisiana to North Carolina, provides enormous opportunities for the Caribbean because of proximity and the same time zone for services. But when the CARICOM region speaks, it speaks to the federal government. Develop state relations with the Caribbean, from Louisiana to North Carolina. And they are willing to do that in several sectors. I see lots of opportunities. But yes, one, we need to operate with one message as a united Caribbean. And two, we have to have a regional strategy. And I hope that the Caribbean Business Council, which is in the making, will be that platform in that engagement with government to create these opportunities for the private sector.
Thank you, Secretary General. Next, yes, Didicus, just
a quick,
briefly, yes.
Mike, volume. Just a quick intervention.
Go ahead.
A quick intervention. I want to take slight issue with what Mr. Ramdin has said, because I think we need to have a more nuanced approach to this. We're talking about disruption, and I think that disruption has to happen from both ends of the spectrum. Government needs to operate in a more business-like manner, and from the private sector end, the private sector needs to operate with more social conscience. The airline industry, while one cannot disagree conceptually with what he said, certainly, I mean, airline business has to be run effectively by airline executives. Parenthetically, I've always found it strange that you look at the host of entrepreneurship programs being run by government ministries and so on, and I keep asking, show me the entrepreneur who's teaching entrepreneurship in those things, because some of these things are being taught by civil servants who really don't know how to make a dollar. But that being said, I think we need to recognize in a region such as ours, when you look at an airline like Hyatt, for example, Hyatt is more complex than what our daily experience of it is. And that's not making excuses for Hyatt, but it's simply saying that there are routes that have to be serviced. Hyatt is as much a public good as a commercial undertaking. And how do we find the right balance is the challenge that we need to undertake.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, the next question, please. Make it brief.
I'll help you from the floor, Miguel. We have someone here from St. Lucia.
Please, brief questions so we can have as many as possible. Thank you.
My name is Juliana Foster, Sustainable Social Development Practitioner, and I'd like to echo the sentiments of Dr. Jules that we want inclusive growth and that we need to be aware that the private sector has benefited more than the people of the region in the past efforts to pursue regionalism. And the way forward I am advocating for is a pro-poor and pro-youth future. And the private sector needs to capitalize on the high youth unemployment rates in the OECS and provide more opportunities for employment through labor migration and education study programs in the campus countries of the UWI and, by extension, the wider Caribbean countries that have universities. His Excellency Larocque speaks of the fear of people coming in. This is very real in the OECS. We are competing with greater numbers of tertiary graduates from the other Caribbean partner countries. We are excluded, our youth are excluded on high levels, and I'd like to advocate for growth that includes our youth more. Additionally, in light of the success that the private sector has encouraged, as we move forward, I'd like to highlight the need for environmental social justice in light of the fact that we want green businesses in our Caribbean future. We cannot continue to promote and advocate for growth in the private sector when these businesses do not care for the environment and produce substandard goods that do not advance the health of our populations. In light of this, if we are going to continue to speak of Trinidad and Tobago as a leader in the regional movement, we need to spotlight Trinidad and Tobago industrial environmental track record. What has Trinidad and Tobago done for green growth in the region? What can the private sectors in Trinidad and Tobago that have access to low-cost energy do for green growth in the Caribbean? We are not here to ask you questions. We are here to say what we want to advocate for. And the future we want has to be inclusive, pro-youth, and green. And lastly, in honor of my mentor, Professor Norman Govan, future trade relations with the Dominican Republic in being pro-poor and pro-inclusive has to be tied to considerations for our Haitian brothers and sisters, and we should not ignore their plight in the DR.
That's fine, Miguel. We have 2 more youth voices here because we did make an effort to include those. So we have someone from Global Shapers, I think Kerry Peters, and then we'll take a couple more through you based on time.
Asiya Mohammed, Global Shaper and Young Social Entrepreneur. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. We would like to see a proposal for a body within CARICOM that is a regional approach to social entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is the way forward, and specifically social entrepreneurship, to deal with crime, to deal with violence against women, to deal with poverty, and to deal with security. So today, we challenge the policymakers in this room to create a regional body through CARICOM to push social entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Kirk Anthony Hamilton. I'm also a global shaper from Kingston, Jamaica. My question and statement just has to do with what the panel sees as the place for the internet as a tool for disruption within the Caribbean region. And when I say that, I'm speaking specifically to the Caribbean's ability to tolerate the level of irreverence that's really necessary for internet businesses to succeed. So when you look at businesses like Airbnb, Uber, Amazon, and these other entities that we hold in great admiration, which typically operate in almost illegal environments until they're proven right, their business model. Can the Caribbean tolerate that? Can we deal with that? Well, the question is posed, for me at least, to the panel looking at the private sector, the goals of the private sector, and whether or not you think policymakers in the Caribbean can come to that level of tolerance that will be necessary for us to really utilize the internet as a tool that it is, especially youth. I mean, this is something that we understand. It's something that we want to build. It's something that people want to work with. But will the Caribbean actually be able to tolerate this method of doing business?
Well, that's a wonderful question. Jan, I don't know if you would like to tackle it for us, please.
And I think there are 2 ways we need to progress this. One, I think because we don't have, I think many countries don't have cybersecurity laws as well as electronic payment. Let us use those 2 areas as an opportunity for legislators to work together. Because it's new, you don't have to change anything. And let's put forward harmonized legislation to enable ICT business. And that will certainly bring in the youth and the youth entrepreneurs.
Very good, excellent. Thank you very much. Next question. We may have only for 2 more, right?
Hi.
Because it's basically time.
Oh.
Yeah, who's there next? There.
Go ahead.
Oh, here, sorry.
Yes.